metal lath. Now my original plan was to use this square, let me get closer, this square wire, whatever you call this 1-inch square stuff, to hold my concrete. I was going to put that everywhere on the vertical parts and the horizontal parts. Of course, I put it along the vertical parts up here for this shelf. In one of the prior videos we talked about this, and this is perfect for the concrete to sit right here because it really doesn't need anything, just something to kind of adhere to so it doesn't slip or slide. Doesn't attach to wood very well by itself. So, but then I discovered what metal lath was, and this metal lath is kind of special because it has little, I don't know what you call them, little ridges right there where my fingernail is, and that's what actually catches the concrete. And you want to orient those so that they slope back. They're a little bit sloped. So you don't want to orient this so that they're all sloped out, because when your concrete hits here, or you spread your concrete on and it starts to sag and settle, you don't want it slipping out and coming off this way. You want it to settle back that direction so it hits the wall. Now, obviously, there's a lot of air spaces back here, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But this metal lath comes in to, I think it's 26 inches high. They're 8 feet long panels, and so you want to run them long ways like this, where the 8 feet goes like this, and 20, I think they're 26 high, and then orient them so that that little ledge points backwards. Now you can't orient them long ways like this because then you don't have that ledge to catch. Then this would be this would be twisted up like this, and then the concrete would be trying to slip this way and it wouldn't catch it as well. So just put it on horizontally like this. I did use several screws to put it in, 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch screws, sometimes 5-inch screws, depending on how far back I was trying to get. I had these washers for this square because I thought I was going to use that on all the vertical part. I'm so glad I didn't use that square stuff on this vertical part, because that would have been a disaster. There's no way the concrete would have held to that, especially with space behind it. So that would have just been an exercise in frustration. So $10 a panel. I got 10 panels that did the whole thing. I'm sorry, 20 panels. So it was $200. And really buying that square stuff wasn't that much cheaper. So I would have paid close to the same amount for that square stuff. In any event, one of the problems I'm running into with it is I wasn't able to smash this and follow the contours of the tire bales everywhere like I would like to have, like I thought I would be able to. So what that means is I only really have about 50% direct contact when I put my concrete veneer on, my concrete plaster on here. I'm only going to have about 50% direct contact with tire bales, where the concrete is in direct contact with the tire bale or the tires behind the concrete, if that makes sense. Okay. The other 50% is going to have an air pocket. Now, is that a big deal? I don't know. I'm a little bit worried. I know in Earthship Biotexture, where they build houses out of rammed earth tires, and they have a tire here, and then they have a tire here, that little space between the tires, they pack with mud, and sometimes they'll put an empty beer bottle or empty can or whatever to fill that space. And that's kind of an air space. I'm not so a couple things about that. There is some airspace in the Earthships, in a real Earthship house, and they work. This is a lot of airspace though, and I worry about it a little bit because this model is just a single chamber model where I rely on the sun shining through, hitting the concrete, my concrete plaster that's going to be on here, warming that, and then where it's in direct contact with the tire bales, it's going to conduct right into the tire bales. Okay, where there's an air pocket behind it though, that's going to have to radiate or convect through that air pocket before it hits the tire bale. I don't know if that's going to be a big issue or not. I'm not going to rip this out now, but I wished I had anticipated that before, or I wish I'd known that these panels weren't going to follow the contours of the tire bales as well as I thought they would. Okay, so then you talk about a 2-chamber Earthship, like a real Earthship house, where you have the back wall of rammed earth tires, you have the main house, the living quarters, kitchen, bathroom, bedrooms, all that stuff, living room, and then you have a glass wall, and then you have your greenhouse, and then you have another glass wall, so that the sun shining through in the winter never actually hits that back wall. They're not counting on that as being part that the sun warms, okay? That's just stabilizing mass. obviously the sun shines in and hits the floor and hits the other wall, the interior walls that go like this, and that warms the house. And obviously they're very efficient because they stay right around 70 degrees year round. So, but in this case, one chamber, I kind of wished I had filled those voids somehow. Now you can see I did use some of my buddy's busted up sidewalk to fill the big holes and the big sections that were big giant air holes. But some of them, I mean, some of these places like behind here, you can see there's a lot of airspace back there. There's a lot of airspace back there. And of course my plumbing, I wasn't able to get it nice and tight here because of the airspace, because PVC just doesn't follow the contours. I guess I could use PEX and that would have followed the contours a little bit better, but I'd still have the same problem everywhere else. So a couple things I could have done about that, I think, is, and that would have been pack it out, just like Mike Reynolds does in regular Earthship biotexture, where they have a void here between tires, and they'll just pack it out with cob or mud, whatever, and then they'll put a beer can or beer bottle just to add fill extra space. And then it's fairly flat. And then when they actually put their plaster over it, it's pretty, they make it very flat. So so the other thing we could have done was just shotcreted this whole thing. Now I'm not 100% sure shotcrete would stick directly to these tire bales, but maybe it would. And if you could shotcrete it, it would be much more expensive than what I'm doing right now, but that would fill all these voids. Or wouldn't fill all the voids, but it would cover all the voids so that your plaster would be in direct contact with your tires. So when the sun shines in and hits that plaster, it would warm it. I think that, like I said, I'm not going to rip it out, but I wished I had kind of considered that. I know that packing all this out by hand with mud or with concrete or whatever I was going to use would take days and days and days. It would take a while to get it all packed out. And in hindsight, I kind of wished I'd done that, but it is what it is here. I'm not going to rip this out, and I'm just going to kind of keep my fingers crossed and hope. So my point is, I won't know till next winter if it's actually as efficient as it was this last winter. I don't know. Now, once we get the planter in here and we get gravel and flagstone poured in the back here, or placed in the back here, and the sun shining in and hitting that gravel on that flagstone, then that might be enough thermal mass also to help keep it warm.